Rabindranath asked a question for a long time.
It's true.
And nothing.
I just, it's settled that you have to be rather than understand. That's settled.
That's good.
So given that, stopped,
Yes.
really
And
stopped paying attention to the questions.
Yeah. I was just hoping to get some segue into what to say. So if somebody in the world hears this, they may think that, oh, but being without understanding is just like being dumb or something. It's like the absence of intelligence. Okay? But the being that you're discovering in the absence of conceptual holding and grasping is the root of all intelligence. So nobody ever comes to this and feels lost. Nobody says, oh, but now, you see, I've lost some very valuable knowledge and take this away from me. So in the absence of conceptual grasping, all intelligence is allowed to shine in its own light. So that's why these days for open and empty I've been explaining it as just free attention. Just keep your attention free. Free attention and no grasping. How would you say it? The no grasping part is clear? How would you say it?
Yes,
this open and empty, like I'm saying free attention but no grasping.
I would say that trusting the inherent intelligence of the being rather than the flawed knowledge of the mind.
Very nice. Trusting the inherent intelligence rather than the fraudulent propositions and proposals from the mind. Fraudulent primarily because of the proposal about who we are in that.
Fully meeting but not conceptualizing.
Yes. Fully meeting but empty of conceptualizing. Isn't that a lack of intelligence? Isn't it the absence of intelligence?
It's not complying with the ideas you had before.
Yeah. It may not comply with the ideas we were carrying before.
But you are present. There is no lack of intelligence in terms of perceiving anything. Even being present for those ideas to come up. For you to know that those ideas are present. So you're not lacking intelligence in any sense.
So what is taken away then?
If you're trying to understand when you're just attentive and not so whatever the mind poses, you don't go with it because you're in that space of just witnessing. You just see that it come on, and you're not being stuck. You're not being pulled into the whatever it may be proposing or not. You just very clearly see it. It's just coming on. You see quite clearly you're not any of that. And you feel the need to know that. Because
how to ensure that it is not new conceptual concepts. You see, we had a set of conceptual concepts, and now how to ensure that open and empty is not a new one. Because like we keep saying, we are not going from branch to branch. We are just cutting the tree of conditioning from its root.
Removing the language and words altogether. Sweeping language aside altogether.
Okay, now is, like, what about the language of Satsang then? So it's not that you become like, you have to become quiet.
But understanding that it can't be language or words. I guess
That
is
the
what I
truth
mean.
cannot be,
Yeah.
yes. Because the truth cannot be expressed. Words are not big enough to capture God or the self or truth.
I think for me, it's being in the zone where your being is effortless.
Yes.
There's not even the trying to sense the being or the triangulation to who's observing the subject-object relationship.
Yes.
Let it all go.
Yeah.
And it's just no effort.
Yes.
That's
No effort.
I think even the slightest effort is like bait for the mind, and then
Yes.
you get sucked into. You're looking at the same thing, but then you start to look at it with lenses on and calculations.
Yeah.
And, you're going from the natural to then deduction or inference.
Yes.
That's natural for you to want to. I mean, you're used to, habituated to inferring and trying to verify through logic. To resist that temptation to make effort.
Very good. So what do I need to understand to do this? I'm just using it illustratively. So what do I need to understand conceptually to carry out all these processes? What do I need to understand?
You don't have to understand. You have to drop understanding. We in fact have to drop understanding, conceptually.
Yeah, no, I'm saying just to pick up the bottle of juice and to pour it and then to drink from it.
We don't need any conceptual knowledge.
What is the taste of the juice if we are being mental? Is it amplified by our conceptual understanding? Oh, this is watermelon juice and so nice. Is it amplified? Is the taste of the experience of phenomena amplified through conceptual knowledge?
It's probably hindered actually.
Exactly, because attention is limited, and we've done that experiment often to see that if you're trying to just perceive this hand, but also you're trying to think about something else, the perception of the hand will become blurry. So it is pretty apparent that attention itself is limited, although its source is not. So to lead a normal life, what do we need to understand about this moment?
Thoughts that phenomena offers proof that they are true. For instance, if you touch a flame, your hand will burn. There's a flame in front of you. You touch it, and you know it. You won't do it. So isn't that confirming that the concept is true?
You need the thought to tell you that if you put your hand in the flame, it'll burn?
Yeah, so first time I tried, it'll burn. But then it's a thought. So next time I won't.
It gets stored only as a thought.
In your memory.
Yeah. Have you evaluated this? You put on the gas every time, and you don't jump into the gas because the thought tells you don't jump in because it's dangerous?
Seems like that.
It's not like that at all. You don't even think about it. Every time you put on the lighter, you're saying to yourself, no, don't put your hands in because you will burn. Because unless you did that, you would put your hands in. Is that your experience?
it seems like the thought is true.
Yeah. So when you go to the balcony, you look at this thing and note if the thought didn't come, don't jump. You would jump. Okay. So the intelligence is already contained in the perceiving itself.
But if you just translate
So if
that-
you didn't get a thought right now saying move your mouth, say like that, move your hand like that, you would not do it. Like the hot nodding of the head, the shaking of the head is happening because first you thought. Yes or no? No. Because you have a bit of that Thiru head shake going on, so I'm not sure whether you're saying yes or no. Isn't it? So what intelligence makes you move it?
Still thought of like, isn't it a fact that, if you jump off the balcony, you will break your leg so you may die? Isn't that thought validated? And isn't that a true thought?
A true thought would depend on what we mean by truth. So if you mean by yes, the body will get affected, if it goes to the hot flame. Okay. So then it's fine. But I keep saying the coconut is green, seems like a very harmless thought. But does the mind leave it at that? Do you leave yourself unharmed, unconceptually molested by just saying, okay, don't touch the candle flame, you'll burn? Mind will also say, oh, when you were a child, then you used to study in candlelight, and times were so tough, kids these days don't know. So all identity, there's possibility. It never leaves it as just the juice is sweet type thought, which you don't need anyway. In any case, you're not going to put your hand in the flame or jump from the balcony. So it may bait you. It may bait you by saying, hey, I can say the truth. By the way, you are doing so well or not doing so well or whatever. So under the guise of a harmless expression, you may find yourself back to identity, back to the mode of suffering. So what is the way to establish truth? What definition of truth can we take to be true? And with what instrument can we gather this truth? What is true? Big trouble with that question. Because if you take the Vedantic definition, everything that is perceived is false. It's unreal. Only the unchanging is true. Then is true true? So we are yearning for meaning, we are yearning for sense making, we are yearning for truth. But what is the mechanism through which we can find it? And this is where 99.9% of spiritual seekers are going wrong. I'm searching for the truth. I've been searching for a long, long time. But with what? How can we search for the truth? With what? What has to transition that the spiritual seeker becomes a spiritual finder? What changes? You say, you saw the truth. I had an awakening. So what changed?
Stop relying on the wrong instrument.
Stop relying on the wrong instrument. Okay, good. So when you stop relying on the wrong instrument, then what happens?
The truth comes out. Is
The truth is just apparent. So the process is that of deconstruction and not of construction. The process is the coming to shunyata, coming to empty, is to come to the truth, the highest truth. And this the mind can never fathom, because to the mind empty is lack. See, if you are empty of something, if the glass is empty, you see, is it a good thing for the mind or the bad thing? It's a bad thing. It wants like some goodies there. What do depressed people say? My life is so empty. I experience an emptiness all the time. And we're coming to satsang like this and said that I experience emptiness all the time. We'll be like, wow. That's it. So what's the difference in the two things? It's not, they are obviously not expressing the same thing. So what is the difference?
One is not an ego wanting something that's not there.
Correct. So we have an idea of how something should be, and the absence of that we call empty mentally. And here the empty that we are talking about is the absence of conceptual grasping, but when you're empty of that, you're full of the apparent truth.
It is easier if you try not to explain to ourselves
Yeah.
what is. If you don't try to explain, it is clear.
Yeah.
Start trying to, okay, we got it, so what is it?
Yes, exactly. When you try to understand, that is the process of grasping.
The way it's always clear. It's
Yeah.
always.
So all of satsang is just to negate and not to construct. So, and I've seen with most spiritual seekers, there's so much spiritual concept, so much righteousness, that it takes some process of negation before they can just chill. When we are understanding all our spirituality, we probably never felt that itself will get in the way.
I think in experience it seems like spirituality was the ego's aim habits just
Yeah.
to its spiritual concept.
Exactly.
It was always the same.
So it's the spiritual ego and not the true spirituality, as you would call it.
Tiny place. Now
What is the graduation certificate of the spiritual seeker?
I know this now.
Huh? The graduation is the spiritual ego. You see? The spiritual seeker graduates into the spiritual ego. The dissolution of the spiritual seeker is what we are trying to do. But the spiritual ego itself will get in the way of you even hearing these words. Because for a while you will try to fit everything in the box of things that you think you already know. And if it conforms to that box, you'll be like, yeah, this is good, this is helping. This is helping because it's confirming what I already know. And if something that blah blah, believe, blue blue, blah. It's like, mostly you won't hear it also. But if you do hear it, you will. Nah. That's definitely not helping. I don't need that. So this is our human condition, that we are trying to graduate to a greater knowledge, a higher knowledge, building on top of what we already know. But that is not possible in satsang. And that's why satsang is the strangest classroom in the world. Where if you're understanding everything I'm saying no. You see? It's the opposite.
I usually don't ask that question because I feel like that's me like letting
Taking?
Like seeing if you're aware.
Yes, yes.
Aren't those also kind of like constructs?
Yes.
And then if you feel like you're not succeeding in those, then you can just jump back into the goal.
Yes. So even this is just, these are, I've not said this often lately, so thank you for asking that. So these are also notions which are provided to you in satsang. What is the advantage of these notions? This is the poison that tries to cut the poison. You see? So that's why I often said that don't make a altar to the words of satsang. It's just like the words of satsang are like harpic. You know, you use it to do the cleanup job, but you don't take them to be some ultimate truth. So even open and empty, are you aware now? Everything, who am I? Everything is a notion, is a concept, and ultimately you don't need any of this. So Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharishi had a very nice metaphor for this. He said that he had two in fact. So he said, when there is a thorn, if it's ever gone in your hand, what do? You take another thorn and you try to remove that thorn. You see? And then what do you do with that thorn which you used to remove the thorn? Throw it. Exactly. You see? He also said that you use the stick of the funeral pyre to light the fire, and then what do you do with that stick? That also goes into the fire. You see, so all of these pointers also have to dissolve, and for that you need to use your own nose or integrity, whatever you want to call it, to see whether you're getting into some sort of just conceptual denial. No, I don't need inquiry, I don't need any pointer. You see, there's no suffering happening to me, but actually you're just like full of internal conflict. Or actually, if you're being open and empty, if you can go even subtler, if you're just being open and empty, you see, then you're not being open and empty. It's just like Guruji's example of just be. When you try to just be, you're no longer just being. It's not possible. So the constructs which are on offer in satsang, that's why we call them pointers. So these pointers, they point you to the destination, but once you reach the destination, you don't need the pointer anymore. That's why a book like The Power of Now came out some 30 years ago or something, 25, 30 years ago. Everybody knows in the moment there is no problem. Everybody, especially in spiritual circles, there's nobody who doesn't know that. Then why isn't everyone happy? Why isn't everyone happy? Exactly. So the attempt to remain in the present itself is the diversion from the present. Otherwise, who doesn't know? Just the power of now. Right now, no problem. Be happy. Everyone knows. But when they make a tactic out of it, they make a strategy out of it, you see, it doesn't happen. So in which way do we come to the discovery of the self?
Letting go of the thoughts.
Letting go of ignorance is the only way to come to the discovery of the self. How to let go of ignorance?
We should have.
So just to recap this point, which is what the conversation in Be As You Are is. Bhagwan said, you will not be free unless you be free from all of your conditioning. Let go of ignorance. He said the attainment of the self is not some new thing that you will find. not some new thing that you will find. It is the letting go of the false. So the way to freedom, the way to the truth, is to let go of all that is false, all the conditioning vasanas. You see? So then the disciple obviously says, so if I have to do this, how can I do this? And Bhagavan says, it already is so. Then the disciple gets frustrated, obviously. It's like, if it already is so, then why you told me that I have to do this? Because you have to do it.
It's very, I think every mind works like that. You say, but oh, let's say, okay, how to do it?
Exactly.
Immediately mind tries
Of
to
course.
find out.
Okay, good. Thank you. I know what I have to do. How do I do it?
Just recognizing the false as false. Could be, if there's a way of doing it, could be that. Just seeing that it is not true. It is.
Yeah. But recognizing the false is false is not that we make a conceptual category of false. See, so it's very subtle what you're saying. To notice it, you see, is not to categorize it. Because many get stuck there also. Oh, the world is all false, all of this. It's a Maya.
No, it's in the moment, like in
Yes,
the moment, not as
exactly.
a theory or something.
Exactly. That's a very important point. Because many will just feel like, many in India are like this because we've heard about Maya and Leela and all of these things for so long. You can just feel like the way to be free is to just like label all of this as Maya. Just like, this is Maya. I don't want anything from this. This is Maya. Too much opposition to what is showing up, and it becomes like a personal rejection of some mental category. So it's a very good point. What is the difference between recognizing and categorizing? Is it possible to recognize without having to categorize?
You used to say that noticing of it is the dropping.
Yes. The noticing of it itself is the dropping of it. Because there's nothing else you can do. You see? There's nothing else you can do. What else will you do with the thought? Besides attention and belief, what can we do? What other tools do we have? Nothing.
So when you say the categorizing, you mean that is like a thought believed in is the category
Exactly.
that just
This is false.
is within that.
That this is the world, this is false. All of these also
Just another
categories.
belief.
Your mind giving words like just recognize or looking or giving that mind can make as if it's an action.
Yes.
Whereas
Exactly.
it's
It's
nothing
not,
to be done.
it's not a play of attention, it's not an action.
When we ask, who am I?
Yes.
You know, sign.
Most are doing who am I as some other thing
But
only.
you recognize that you you are and you are aware without going or referring to any person. I mean, when you know how you show us who witnesses that next door. So that just eventually, I don't know how, but you just realize that you don't need that,
Yeah.
and nor do you. It's effortlessly quite apparent to you that it's silent. I mean, just using words that you are aware and that you are and that you are aware. That so that it's quite becomes quite shocking because you don't, you're dependent on that voice to be that, but you realize that it's not true actually. That this thing is quite.
Yeah.
I have to say that.
So with what can we confirm
You confirm
our
it
truth?
itself. I can't go to my mind, or I don't need a confirmation because I'm confirming.
okay.
I'm confirming.
So suppose that all of you go meet some spiritual seekers somewhere, or say part of a popular sangha in Bangalore or something like that, and you just like self-realization is apparent. And they're like, but how can you confirm this? Because we've been looking for the self for a long time. We've done thousands of kriyas and thousands of things. How can you just say, what practice did you do?
The heart knowledge.
The heart knowledge. You say, what is that? Okay.
You can explain, it's not in your head, it's just, you don't know when to know.
You could possibly.
How to explain?
Huh?
How to explain?
I would run from such a situation.
It's hard to explain.
Impossible.
But yet, if you hadn't told us, Father, how to look, we wouldn't have known.
Yes.
You know
That's the
what I'm
strangest
saying?
thing. That's the strangest thing, because everybody, even before coming here, was spiritual. Like very few, very few I can count in my fingers who were not spiritual, not part of some satsang, did not have a guru. Those are very few. So, no, it's not so. And yet, most spiritual seekers are persisting in trying to find God as if God is a perception. Although the attempt of the Vedantic sages was to tell us right up front, it will never be found as a perception. And the rare ones who are not trying to find a special perception of God are trying to think about it and figure it out. Who am I? Trying to solve the who am I as a mathematical equation or something. See? Or even worse, just trying to convince themselves of some belief system saying I am Brahman, I am the self, I am the unborn. These are the wrong ways of seeking. Every way of seeking is the wrong way of seeking.
Like everywhere they used to say, stop looking outward,
Correct.
look inward. But what is this inward?
Inward.
We had no idea.
Exactly.
Looking where?
And inward, inside what?
Just on that, I think at least for my own personal journey,
Yeah.
the first thing that was evident, like the first time I came as well, was the presence and the fact that there was the non-phenomenal universe that I was not aware of and now could recognize. I find that if a satsang recording is played to a few people, for a lot of us, the words themselves perform their action in terms of cleanup, and you feel being. But I find that a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And I'm also mystified by what's going on.
Yeah. That's good.
If it's effortless, if it's for everybody in this group, it's something that it's like.
So if we can put it simply, what you're saying is that I came here, I felt it. How come everybody doesn't?
How come? And even today, if you play a recording,
Yeah.
it's not like all people will feel something.
Exactly.
So I'm just wondering, what's the, what's happening.
We can make some lame sort of remark saying, oh, consciousness loves diversity, variety, doesn't like redundancy, so everybody's temperament and conditioning is different, and therefore something. But I feel like most of you have come to a point where you're not really that interested now in the therefores and the this is why it is and all of that. In fact, when you say to me, I'm so mystified by this, I hear it as good news. It brings us in a state of wonder. And why would you want to exchange that state of wonder with a understanding? It's completely contrary to the way of usual mind understanding. It's like Oshoji saying, oh really? No, he's not looking in the mood then. Baby, my whole job is to confuse you. And he was not making jokes. Because he said that if I don't, I'm paraphrasing, if I don't, then you hold on to your knowledgeability. So, how many that we come across are really open to being open in this way, to come to the end of their conceptual knowledgeability? It's very rare. So these words then seem to attack the mind. And the mind seems to attack back. Everything. So, like a notion like the unborn, or the no mind, or manonasha, all that sounds so attractive to the mind. But when you actually come to the point of remaining in the unborn, that is when the mind says, oh no, this is not what I wanted at all. It sounded so good because Bankai said, all things are perfectly resolved in the unborn. But I have to go. I didn't bargain for that. But what about me? What about me? So then we come back to a sort of tamer spirituality saying, okay, a little bit of this, a little that, like that. I feel some peace with this, and this kind of stuff. This is okay. I mean, it's their part. But that's not what this kind of satsang is for. Do you know what's happening to you? If you know here, you can throw it away. Because you will only insert that in your narrative. You will say, I came to satsang with Ananta and it's like that a bit, it's like this a bit, it's very nice, it's very boring, it's very whatever. Which you think may be happening has nothing to do with any of this. So, don't live in your head. Snap out of it. Reality has nothing to do with what you're thinking about it. You don't need to know here what is happening. And here you know that nothing else ever really happened. So what's happening? What's going on? Like the simplest question which everybody asks is a courtesy. From where can we get a true answer? What's going on? Yeah. What's going on? Yeah.
I mean, in a sense, just perception is going on. If I have to say words, but
Are you,
nothing.
Are you hampered in any way?
No.
Without the knowledge or the conceptual explanation of what you think is this or this is.
What is hampered?
Hampered, like there's something, is there an obstacle to being, or is there something getting in the way? You can always ask if there's any word like that. One child once told me, you sound like some professor or something. Then I noticed that I have two modes. Either I'm in that the usual professor mode is the usual one, and just like that. Or now I have a new mode in the last few months, which is the lion mode. Can you stop being right now? The other one, and I feel like everybody's a bit like. Wake up.
Get up and roll.
Wake up and roll. So, doubts, questions?
No doubt, please. So, sometimes things happen where you then have to you have to either accept the circumstances as they're playing out,
Yes.
or you have to get into a flurry of action, to try to change the course.
One is to accept circumstances as they play out, and two is to get
know,
into action now.
To try to change the way that things apparently seem to be flowing.
Thank you for asking this. Okay, good. This is very important, okay? Nothing that I've said is about any external circumstance or the movement of this body, whether it is active or inactive. Now notice whether from open and empty a flurry of activity may still happen. You see, or not? That's very, very important. It's not about becoming vegetative, sheepish, quiet. You see, it may happen, and that's fine too. Or it may not. It may be the opposite. You may say, one day you may have this in your heart, suddenly, Father has revealed something so great. This needs to be shared. So you may become like a missionary just sharing, and who knows? We don't know these things. You see, so full of activity, just going to everyone, saying, but who are you? Look at this, you see, like that. We can't say. This is the beauty of this open and empty, that it's independent of whether there's activity or inactivity of the body. In fact, it has nothing to do with this body anyway. The first thing you notice everything instantly, but in a manner of speaking, the first thing you notice when you're open and empty is that this body is perceived just like every other body. There just only seems to be a centrality of some visual perspective directed this way, but that in no way makes it my container or something that gives me a location. You notice that you don't have a where. So where are you? Where are you now? What is your location? Where are you? Where are you looking at this world from, if you're looking at a world? And I mean actually, literally, not poetically, not metaphorically. Where are you?
You know you're looking, but you can't say where.
Well, let's find out. Where? Worth finding out. No?
I'm looking from what I am. I mean, I'm the looking myself.
But where are you? Very, very literally. It's like somebody asking you, where do you stay? Where do you stay? This is the bane of the human condition. Our mind can ask all kinds of questions about God and truth and love and beauty and joy and all of these things. But the mind cannot take this, does not have the ability to assimilate a single answer. It doesn't even know where you are, who you are, what life is, what truth is. And the bane of the spiritual seeker is the one trying to do like a doctorate, a PhD degree. But the books that they're reading is all nursery rhymes. No? You cannot get to truth with the mind. The mind is just too small, it's too shallow to meet the depth of who you are. You don't know where you are. Like she said earlier, everyone says go inside. But you go inside, you close your eyes, okay, you cut some stimulus out. Inside what have I gone? Inside what have I gone? I went inside the body, all organs, flesh, blood, bones will be visible. So obviously I didn't go inside the body. So inside what am I going? Nothing. Even like we talked about fourth dimension, fifth dimension, just conceptual. The space-time continuum, just concepts. But what is the true way to meet all of this? Start exploring for yourself. Where am I? A question like that can introduce you to your dimensionless reality. But we really have to sincerely look and not settle for like easy conceptual answers. You want to spend the whole life, you want to spend your whole life in ignorance. Just presumed answers. I must be a body. Or I must be something living inside the body. Sometimes a question like this can seem to physically hurt the mind. Don't fear that. Don't fear that discomfort.
Intelligence and mind, they are like parallel lines
Yeah.
that never meet,
Correct.
So,
Yes.
and it tries its best to somewhere bridge that,
Exactly. Well, you don't need that. I can do this. Like every father that I've ever met, I could have told you this. So the mind also plays that game. What's this? Yeah. You have no location. I could have told you. What is he telling? You have no location. Some of you are confirming this like conceptually to yourself as we speak. Conceptually, they say, leave this question, I have no location. That's why sometimes I love the Zen tradition, where for 20 years One koan. That's all. Can't leave it. I think you solved it. Go to the master. Zen state. Maybe. So I have given you a carrot because this is more of age of carrot than stick. So I have given you a carrot saying that your timeless reality, your dimensionless reality will become apparent to you if you truly look at where you are. What is my location? Everything which is in the phenomenal universe can be plotted in some way. If you're on the earth, you can be plotted as latitude and longitude. If you're in the universe, you can be plotted as galaxy this, then planet this, and something. So where are you? Make a plot. Like, tell me your plot. Tell me your location.
So I don't know if I'm trying to understand it from the mind or what. But like she said, when you ask the question, where are you looking from? There isn't a specific point, but it is generally here is where I'm looking from.
What do you mean generally here mean?
Yeah.
Suppose you were sorry, I keep referring. This has become the metaphor always. But suppose you were reviewing somebody's work. I say, where is your work? Generally, kuch hai. You will not buy that, no? What does it mean when we say generally here means?
Okay, in the sense that, it brings me back to a long time back ago when we were having Satsang there. And it was the same question.
Okay.
Same thing we were doing. And this thing that I'm still looking from here. Or
where is that here?
Okay, when we say
that expression is reminding me of Jastinder talking to some junior copywriter who's not understanding what she's trying to say.
I'm thinking that maybe we're not using these same.
No, my question is very simple. It's like, what is your location? What is the answer?
So at a okay, that's too obvious an answer. At a gross level, the body, and then otherwise, if you say inside the body,
at the gross level, you are the body. What level is that? It's okay, don't worry.
Yeah. So I mean, at the gross level, that's a plant. This is a body. That's a painting.
So, you are the body itself, or you are in the body?
In the body.
You're in the body. Now, in the body, like if it is in the glass, we should be able to spot it. No?
Right.
Like every object can only store another object. It cannot store a non-objective thing. You see? So, if you are something in the body, we should be able to send some surgeon or something to find you. That doesn't happen.
No, I agree. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But still, when the question is where, it's not like a diffused feeling that I am all over.
Yeah.
It is still a feeling that it is here.
Okay, so let's use a metaphor which maybe may broaden this conversation. So it's possible that we could be having this conversation in a dream, and you could be waking up any moment saying, I had a strange conversation, isn't it? So let's presume for a moment then this is that dream. Then where are you? Worth discovering, because everything that we call the waking state, we also experience in the dream state. You see? But when we wake up from the dream state, we say, oh, all of that happened within me. You see? So then who is the container and who is the contained? Because if we are saying that at whatever level I am this or inside this, then I am contained in this realm called the world. You see? Now is that something which is undoubtable? Is it verifiable?
It's doubtable.
It's imminently
You also
doubtable.
have another experience where the world is not there.
It's imminently doubtable. And also people have had all kinds of experiences of out of body and near death. Anyway, we won't go into any of that stuff. No? So I feel like it's really worth exploring. So we can't just leave it at I must be somewhere within the body. As what?
But when you come back to the question of worth exploring,
Yeah.
then how?
Exactly. So that's why I'm pointing you to your intuition, where all these answers are contained. So when Ashtavakra said, I promise you, in Satsang, you will discover what Ashtavakra said, and you will say even that is too limiting. Where he said that you are the boundless ocean in which the arcs of universes come and go. So that is very far out from our idea. Very, very different from our present idea, which may be that I am something contained in a body. You see? And if you just look at it like except just taking it at face value, if you look at it at any level, scientific level, spiritual level, any level, we find that there is no basis for saying that. Like at the scientific level, there is no entity like that which is inhabiting a body. Isn't it? No? Yes, it's okay. So I'll just repeat this part. I was saying that if you look at it even at a scientific level, you see,
Look at what?
this question of where we are, that this science does not propose that you are an entity sitting inside the body. It doesn't, exactly. So from which level should we take this proposition to be true? There is no surgeon who's discovered such an entity. There is no validation of any of this at any level of credibility. It's just that we seem to base that on some central, like I keep saying, centrality of visual perspective, but this could be a dream, this could be a computer program with a virtual reality headset, this could be anything. So what can we determine undoubtedly?
Except for the fact that I am and nothing then.
Okay, let's okay, this is a good step now. So we are basically concluding that in our head we can't figure this out. Isn't it? That much we are concluding. Now what else do we have? What else do you have? And that's why I've been looking at all the questions in the invitation also. And I've been asking everyone, how are you answering those questions? Because everybody says, no. Is it? But is it just like a belief system? No. Like, were you born? Everybody says, you do the invitation from time to time. Not so. But even people who do, it's like, were you born? No. Can you die? No. And they're just like trying to make themselves believe it and maybe feel happier that the belief is reinforced. But where is this source of knowledge? You see? And I'm not saying everybody is doing it like that. Many are intuitively being able to respond. Are you, so if I was to frame a question, are you in this universe or is the universe in you?
Intuitively, I know that the universe is in me, but I can't know it from my head. I try to understand
Yeah.
the logic.
Yes. And which one tells us the truth?
It's a very.
How will we even get this answer from? Because your mind will say I do and intuition will say I do.
No, I couldn't. The discomfort is coming from my head.
Discomfort is never coming from intuition.
That's what I'm saying. It's coming because I'm trying to say.
Squeeze the unsqueezable into the head. When we try to squeeze the unsqueezable into the head, that is where it explodes and it reacts. And I'm happy to see head explosions. So if the question really, okay, so we change the question from where are you to a simpler question. It is, are you in the universe or is the universe in you? Now it's very confusing because all our life we believe that we are inside the universe, but these strange people keep coming along from time to time saying, Descartes will say, how do we know this is not a dream? Ashtavakra will say, these universes come and go within you, you are the ocean. What to follow? How to go to the truth?
So I guess there are a couple of suggestions. One is if I ask myself intuitively, I know I'm here, and that knowledge I'm here doesn't have any boundaries. Of course, the sensations of the body are felt acutely in that space, but the space itself is limitless. And then I also know that every perception, when you talk about the universe, whatever it may be, is.
But what do you mean by I know?
I know that every perception.
What do you mean by I know?
That is. I can see. I can see that the perception is within, and it's after, it follows being, like it's something which is contained within being.
You can see this means? Like see it as sight seeing? Not sight seeing.
From where I see being, I can see that the perception is within the being. From where I see being.
Yeah.
From myself as the witness of being.
What do you actually see? Because seeing can be quantified. No? Sight can be quantified. You're wearing a blue shirt, you have specs. So what do you actually see? That's why I'm asking whether seeing is sight seeing.
From perception, I see whatever I would, like I looking to an instrument. It's like some, it's a visual. It doesn't mean it's me.
No, but when you say I see that this being is contained within me or the universe is contained within being, how do you see that?
I mean, it's just, it's irrefutable that
how do you see it?
Because I'm
बड़ा वर्ड
करके
बड़ा वर्ड करके you're trying to confuse me.
That's also true. That's what the legal profession is.
If you can't convince them, confuse them.
It's actually true. But how should I?
That's my tactic. You can't use it on me. It's very important to. These may seem like I'm getting into like micro details, but it's very important when you say I see it like this.
I am the seeing. I'm not seeing.
How do you know that?
Because I am that seeing.
How you know that?
I know it.
Is the universe in you or are you in the universe?
The universe is in me.
How do you know?
Because I am that knowing itself. There is nothing separate. I am that knowing itself.
So how does that make the universe in you?
If you want to say it logically, you can say that there is no. I see it. So there is me. And I see the universe. You can say it that way also, but that is again to the mind, inference again. Because heart just knows it, there is no explanation.
Without me, there's no universe, right? I come first, right? I mean, I think, just to put another angle, I come first. Without me, there is no witnessing.
How you know this? All the authority went off the
Cross-examination melted down.
You were here when we were doing this, no? I was just like, who's aware of the perception of this hand? I am. How do you know? How do you know it is I? It's just to break the addiction to false knowledge. Because actually in the world, we only consider false knowledge to be knowledge. We don't take self-knowledge to be knowledge. And then sages like Ashtavakra, Ribu, all of them sound like they are mystics. Because compared to what we take to be knowledge, what they are saying is just like sound like, oh, this is some metaphysical stuff, with the multiverse level things happening. But what if that was a closer representation of your reality? What the sages have said. What if that was a closer representation of your reality than what we have taken to be so far? And is there a place, like I use that term loosely, is there a place where we can meet the sage in their same insight? Not meet the sage like beautiful meeting types. Meet them in terms of what they're saying, so it doesn't feel like I have to be convinced about it. So anything that any sage, like every sage has said at least one thing like this that can trouble your mind. So Banka, he said, you're the unborn. Ashtavakra said, you are the boundless universe, and basically every line in the Ashtavakra Gita. Same, Ribu, all the sages have said something which the mind cannot capture or fathom. Why are they doing this? Are they doing this just to trouble us? I would. How can I trouble my children? Ask them, where are you? I am proposing, in fact, imploring that these questions are important and relevant. Your mind will say, there's no way, there's no way. And if there's no way, then there's no way to find out who I am. What is the truth? What is the self? What is the absolute? So then to answer the question, then how to? If you cannot do it with the mind, then how to? So, and all the clues are there with you. So when I ask you, are you aware now? How do you do it? With what mechanics, with what mechanism do you come to this discovery that you are aware? How would you do it? Has anyone seen this awareness? How would you do it? Are you just thinking you are aware? So it's not perception, it's not thought. Then how is it? How is it that you say, yeah? And you don't even say there is awareness. You say, I am aware. You're giving it that value. I am. How? With what? On what basis? How much effort does it need? Okay, let's get clues first. How much effort does it need for insight that I am aware? If you applied more effort, could you do it better? That is the philosophy of effort. If I do more of it, then it should become better. But this is nothing to do with effort. Neither perceptual effort nor thinking effort. Nothing needed. So all inquiry, all questions of the sort which the mind cannot fathom, their answers are here. It is only from this place that a sage like Ashtavakra writes, or why is it?
Because every time all these questions have been asked,
Yeah.
I have not been able to say yes to any of them.
Yeah. So you are aware you are able to say yes to.
And I'm not able to say yes. I'm aware of that.
That you can't say yes to. Am I aware now?
No,
I am aware.
The other questions like limitless, are you born? Are you
Exactly. They are unfathomable to the mind. You see, and yet the sages take some joy in asking us these things. So they must be doing it so that is the same reason why a Zen master gives a Zen koan, because it's unfathomable. Okay, I'm gonna spoil Zen for everyone, but it's unfathomable to the mind. But in the practice of sincerely asking, we discover an intelligence which is beyond the mind, which is where the sages are writing from. And that is the gift I want to give all of you as well. See? What is it that you know, we may say poetically, in the heart? See, what is it that you know in the heart, but you don't know in the head? See? So, and in the heart you always know. See, I know this in my heart. So, in the heart you always know, but sometimes it can feel like the answer doesn't come out in an expressible way. See, it's not ready to be expressed either as a concept or any sort of language. So if I ask you, do you feel like death is permanent? When the body dies, you die permanently. Where does that come from? Is it only because of learned knowledge and tradition, or something deeper than that? You see, that something deeper is not something which is a process of mechanical thinking or learned knowledge. And we can become a little more poetic and say, where do you know love? When you love, it doesn't even have to be in love, but just love itself. You see, where do you know it? Many times you love, like with kids especially, you love the kids, but you're so angry with them at that moment, then you can't say that, oh, the love is because there's a feeling of still, but you know you love them. You see? And this knowledge, the knowledge that you are aware, the knowledge that you are timeless, that you are deathless, the knowledge that you are not in time or space, all of that is the heart knowledge. Is it?
All of that.
That is heart knowledge or intuitive knowledge. See, it cannot be known in any other way. See, none of the books in the library there can be known conceptually. I mean, many have tried to know them conceptually. People who have written commentaries on them may have also written them conceptually. You see? But actually, what they are pointing to can never be conceptual.
Could we speak a little more about the aware and awareness?
Yes.
Or what is it not?
Yes.
So it's not confused with it.
Anything perceptual, it's not.
Right.
Anything with a quality, it's not. You see? It's not a dark, empty space. It's not something that we can perceive through any mode, any instrument of perception. Yes? So once you take perception out, most of the knots are like that. I want to re-ask now. So are you aware? Because this is good to have this conversation, because many times I ask the question, are you aware? Your mind starts showing you some dark, empty space, and you feel like that is awareness. No? You feel like attention has to go to that absence of this perception called sight, absence of sound, absence of something like that, and that must be awareness. But you cannot bring your attention to awareness. You see, you can withdraw attention from the world, you see, and maybe rest it in your being, or just leave it free. But the non-qualitative can never be found through attention. The attention is just the light of perception itself, and we can only perceive qualities. So where do you know that you are aware? Or how do you know that you are aware? That is the place where all answers are always known. You see? And where you don't know, you see? Where you don't know where you are, I'm not asking so that you can squeeze the answer in there. I'm only asking so you can notice that space and let go of it as a reliable voice of truth. With me? With me, my dear? First, satsang can be a bit much. So this is game changing. Because what we took to be our assistant to tell us things which are true, we realize that that one doesn't have a clue when it comes to capital T truth. That one doesn't have a clue. And yet, there seem to be these people on the walls, these people who've written books who we read for centuries, who seem to be pointing us to something with the full authority that this is true. That you are not born or dead. You were not born and nor will you die. With what authority do they say that? Is it just like a spiritual tradition of concepts passed on? And because it's just learned knowledge, we must all believe it and then we are being spiritual? Or is there a way to find that for ourselves to be true? Okay? And most of you do the invitation and Guruji asks you this every time. Were you born? Or was this born? What is the other?
Was it born?
Was it born?
Can it die?
Can it? So it's important to notice the source of that knowledge. Because I just think, was it born? No, from learned knowledge, no? Guruji said no. Then that is just like creating like a belief system around it. What is the point of the invitation or Bhagwan's inquiry, who am I?
I find that it's to replace the idea that I had of myself.
Replace it with what?
Not replace it with reveal.
Reveal means what? Today I'm in this kind of thing.
To show you that.
Show means?
Make you recognize.
What? How would you mean? Like recognize mean like this? Like I recognize the phone?
I say I am, right? And I'm thinking, I'm imagining, thinking, whatever. I'm a person and I was born and I will die.
In what way do you see I am?
I don't see I am, but I know I am.
How do you know?
It's self-knowledge, it's evident, it's...
Just meet it like fresh.
Yeah.
Fresh. How do you know?
I can do this over meditation probably.
What do you mean?
It's not an meditation in the sense that it's evident itself without.
Yeah, that's all
I know,
Vedanta
but
stuff. Vedanta class.
I'm struggling.
But I am. This is the. I mean, sorry to use another word,
See.
but it's so elemental. Like wake up in the morning. I am.
How you know?
I mean,
That's all I'm asking.
Maybe
like,
go with the negative.
If I
I'm
say
not here.
I wake up in the morning and I know
I
I'm on my bed.
I know I'm exist.
Then I say,
I mean, you can ask myself. Does somebody
You can
else
also
exists.
say-
It isn't somebody else who's existing. And you can't say that I don't exist because I wouldn't be able to ask
But,
myself the question.
okay, let's use your metaphor.
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning. I say, where do you wake up? You say, on my bed. I say, how do you know you're on your bed? You say,
I mean, it's an old one, I just know. I mean,
not that you just know, you can perceive it. No, you can perceive it. I'm on my bed, so there's evidence.
It's true.
You see, so if I was to say your knowledge is wrong, you're not on your bed, actually you are
Bed is in your
stuck in a desert somewhere. You say, no, Father, I can see my bed. You can perceive it. You see, in the same way I'm asking, you see, how do you know that you are aware?
That's what you discover, then you're not perceivable. You don't need that perception to know who you are. It doesn't matter which universe is going to come.
So
You
this,
still know.
where you discover that you are unperceivable,
Yeah.
why can't we live there?
I am actually living there, imagining I'm there.
So why don't you stop imagining?
I can't live anywhere where I can imagine that I'm
Hmm.
now this person, whatever I want to imagine. I
Right.
can keep imagining.
Yeah. So stop imagining.
I'm trying.
Why? If you're just imagining, then what is it?
The I'm trying is also part of the perception of being a person. I mean,
We're
that's
just getting to the crux of the matter. You see? Because I feel like many times in spirituality there's too much fluff
yeah.
and very little actual crux of what is being pointed. How can I get what the sages have found? You see? Ashtavakra is saying, you are the boundless ocean, the universes come and go. Why don't you fight with Ashtavakra? Yeah, I'm not the boundless ocean, I am in this body. What do you mean? You see?
But why would I fight
So
with
this
Ashok? I'll fight with
dichotomy,
you.
so
I
this
don't fight with
this
Ashok.
dichotomy, you see, this dichotomy, where we just like, oh yeah, you know, he said I'm the boundless ocean, and then we read it like some poetry or something like that, which is like, okay, maybe one day I'll find, you know, so this kind of stuff. Meet it, no, just meet it. What is being, where can you meet this? Is there something, he must have said it for a reason, he's put it in his Gita. If it was unfathomable forever for everyone, why would he put it there? He's not a torturer. Why does Bhagavan keep saying, who am I? Ask yourself, who am I? You can never get it with your head, you know that. No? Neither is he somebody like in Delhi where you ask them direction and they'll say, थोड़ा आगे जाके पूछ लो. He's not saying. He's telling you, you are that. Guruji tells us all this. I don't see anybody protesting saying, but. Few actually I have seen. But they end up with some inference, some final inference. Is there a way to meet this? Is there a way to meet who am I? Where am I? Is it? Were you born? Will you die? Is there a way to truly answer these questions? Or is our spirituality just this fluffy thing which you feel like, oh, this gives me so much peace, so I just remember I can't die, you know, so I feel better. Is it like that? Maybe there's a place for that also in this world. I'm not saying there isn't. You see, but is there a deeper way to meet this? And for this, we only need to just not be very attached to our ideas of what the world is and how it runs. As I said some time ago, and in some interview or something, I said, what is the prerequisite for satsang? And I said that if you're obsessed with the notion that you are an object inside this universe, and there's not even a sliver of a lining, you see, which allows you to sliver of openness which allows you to fathom that it could be the other way around. That the universe is a tiny existence within you. That is the only prerequisite. I know I am not saying you have to be pre-convinced about it or have this belief system or have the spiritual insight like this. I'm just saying that when the possibility emerges, then you are not completely closed to it. Otherwise, all of satsang will feel like an attack, or most of it anyway. So, the story that you have about your life, replace the central character in that story with this boundless ocean. Tell me a valid story now about yourself. You are the boundless ocean in which the universes come as if small arcs. No? Yeah, some arcs are big, but arcs. What is your story now? Which one is lying? Is Ashtavakra lying? Or is the mind lying? And if Ashtavakra is telling the truth, how can you meet this truth? How can you make it your own?
When I feel complete, okay, in this intuitive understanding, with your question, then I'm not going to dig. I'm not going to go with this thing and dig.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to dig and find out this, I'm going to make effort and I'm going to miss who I am right now.
Yes.
I'm not going to do that.
Yes. Today I can only say, very good, yes sir. No chopping today at all.
No, you please do that.
I'm kidding.
What's your name?
Don't worry. Don't. I'll send you a message later.
It feels like that, there's it could be a misunderstanding because I can see some guys who are not doing the digging. They're doing the digging because sometimes I do notice, my fellow Sanghi, and that's not good. I mean, who am I to say like that? But I am saying that.
With what tools can we dig?
Only with the mind. We are complete. When we are complete, we are complete. And it's the intuitive understanding. And where do I go to the mind to take it? To understand? No, I don't do that.
Yeah. So if you want tomatoes, how much do you have to dig? If you dig, you will only get potatoes. So that has been the theme of Satsang today, that all of these questions, from where can we answer them? From where can we answer them? There's so many, you go to Tiruvannamalai, you see so many people, they live in a Ramana ashram, or they come to Ramana ashram every day. For 50 years they've been asking, who am I? And what? Because they're digging with the wrong instrument. Why do masters ask these questions? Why does the Zen master give us a koan? And something like the invitation is like one koan after the other. So we must not solve it like a herd or something. Everybody saying no. So with every question, if you can answer one of them, you can answer all of them. It's not like the levels of Zen koans. Like, oh, you finished? Or okay, let me give you the next one. Maybe some do like that, but it's really not that way. It's not like, okay, first you solve where am I, then you solve who am I.
I've been noticed that I'm like jumping from one to another.
Your contemplation?
Yeah.
Like which
and
one?
this time that I've been here, that
Yeah.
sometimes I've heard something and I sense like the power of it, and for some days I keep
Yes.
it.
Like,
But,
give me an example.
Like when you told us the story about the seventh son of the barren woman.
Yeah.
It was so potent, so powerful that, and for a few days.
I'm glad at least somebody heard me.
But and it happens also another time that I hear something different and I go with it, and then with this and with this, and I don't know if that's like a mind.
You don't have like a standard go-to pointer, like one pointer that you come back to.
No, it's been like this, like going from one to another, so I don't know if.
So you don't have like a pointer boyfriend.
Not yet.
No. You may have dates with others, but you don't come back to one.
But there's one question that is not very consistent with it, but that is where are my boundaries, my limitations, where are my limits? I ask that question comes and it's very clear.
And then it becomes boring. Is it like that?
I don't know if it becomes boring, but I see that it's easily to say, oh no, it is this one now.
It's okay. It's okay if by asking you find that it makes you open and empty. It's okay, because although I should say actually that pick one and stay with it, dig it, so that you can find the water. And I may say like that, but honestly here, I was just jumping from. Maybe jumping is the way, I don't know. So who am I used to seem very attractive sometimes because I read Bhagwan's books. So that's like. But I feel like I was just sort of experience chasing. So then who am I? And then I had this idea of just, it helped so much because everything becomes quiet. Who am I? And after a few days, what happens with it? Doesn't have that quiet. Inquiry still works, which I now realize. I never saw then. I feel like it's not so powerful. It used to be more powerful, like that. No? Then like, what can I do? And the good or bad thing is that I've been like so much immersing myself in spirituality that I knew so much. So I would do sometimes Ram chanting, sometimes even loving kindness meditation, sometimes all like whatever I'd heard from everywhere. So I would just do like that. But actually, at one level, it's okay. Although my advice is coming out like this today. Mostly it just comes out like stick to a pointer, go deep. But I can't control how it comes out.
Just checking if it's a tendency of not being focused or something.
No.
Or it's...
Maybe not focused, is it? Like I can't really say. Because I was not focused. I was like one day Ram Bhakt, one day Shiv Bhakt, one day this, one day that. What is being pointed to is a possibility and is completely achievable, quote unquote, achievable for everyone. It doesn't matter so much. what path you take to traverse the pathless path. It's really not that relevant. He came an atheist. He came as an atheist. There are few like that. Some have been in spirituality 20, 30, 40 years. Gopala has been spiritual for how many years? I'm going to speak in glowing terms today.
Almost
40 years.
Ananta-ji, as when you ask us all these questions, like it seems like we have to make an effort when you have already given us the due to understanding, right? And then this thing comes to my mind when Nisargadatta Maharaj says, the master told me to stay with the being. I stayed with the being for 3 hours, 3 years, and then I'm done.
And how many such disciples did the master have?
So,
how many such disciples did Siddharameshwar Maharaj have?
I don't know.
Only one or two, no? Ranjit Maharaj and Nisargadatta. So
what would your advice be to us?
So, like I said to her earlier, that all of this prodding, prompting, pushing is so that you get used to living intuitively and not living in the head. Then I feel like that is true. And today's world is very different because there's so much variety. Everybody goes to Google and searches. I don't feel like Maharaj would do all of that. He found a master, said this is it. So we used to, like I was saying earlier, in these days carrots work better than sticks. So because there's so much opportunity to run. So this expression, I don't know how it comes out. Like I don't know what will come from here. But there's a sense that that different sort of pointers all point to the same thing over the years really help to bring us to this insight. Like look at the Sangha itself compared to 5 years ago. You can see. Maybe it would have also worked if I just continued saying don't believe your next thought and are you aware now, just in that way. That I really can't say, but to be honest, like I have nothing to do with any of this. Just the heart speaks what the heart speaks. And I just have to trust that, because if I ever start questioning the heart, then I'll have to go into some cave for some time and do some sadhana. Like even these words are coming, they just come. I will start the sentence, I don't know what else is going to come after that. You just have to trust the way it is. Look at the kids in the room 5 years ago. I would say, who's aware of the perception of this hand? You say, and then you say, how do you know? It's just like, I say, it's apparent. No, see, how much flower?
I do not think
Huh?
it wasn't.
Louder?
I mean, grace didn't, although awakening and presence was known, the intuitive understanding came recently. And by your grace. So really deeply. So I'm convinced that I can't do it.
Huh?
I can't do it.
Thank you.
I get pulled into identity, but I don't notice it. I'm trying to just notice it as it comes, because it comes up quite often.
How do you know? Okay, I want to make this point which came out, I felt very well in the Satsang on Friday. Okay. So suppose we want to be free from the conditioning of the mind. No, that's the overall attempt, to be free from ignorance, as Bhagavan has told us. So our idea is to be free from ignorance. We recognize that there's a voice which we call the mind, which is the voice of ignorance. We recognize that. Okay? Now, once we are on the journey to be free from ignorance, okay, free from the voice which is peddling in ignorance, what do you think the voice will do? Or not think? No, it'll say, yes, yes, I am the voice of ignorance, please be free from it. No. It will give you things that are wrong with you, that you have to fix, that you are not done yet, many times. Or the reverse. It'll say you're too good, you're wonderful, you're the next Ram on this planet. You see, something like this. It will say like that. You see? But there's rarely a thief which will say, I am the thief, I am causing the problem. You see, I have stolen your goods. No, you'll say, it's that guy. So the problem is not with me, it is with you. It will say. The mind will say the problem is not with me. I am not the problem. The problem is you. You get pulled into identification. How is it my fault?
I can't see through all this.
Huh?
I'm not able to see through.
That's right. That's why I'm pointing it. So that you notice that if it is a thought, it is a thought. If you fall into that trap, but that thought could be accurately telling me something. You see, but you don't need to know anything. You need to know, you know intuitively anyway. So when it's making this diagnosis, it's making these report cards, I'm telling you, my child, don't get stuck in this stuff. Because spiritual seeking then can go on forever. You see, because it's just like, today it's I get to identify, tomorrow it's something else, day after it's something else. The mind will never run out of diagnosis. And even if it is saying you are free, it is only so that it will say tomorrow, oh, yesterday you were quite free, today you are being a bit bummed. So recognize that the only source of trouble is that thought itself. Or you could try to do symptom chasing and saying, okay, this is my true condition. Why do you feel like the mind will help you get rid of the mind? So that's why I've been asking, how do you know? So you say, I have a tendency to get pulled in again and again. No? And if I ask you, how do you know? You will say, I notice it. You don't notice it. It's just not true. Your mind is telling you this is your problem. We looked at it, were you here that day? When we looked at it, I am sure that when I ask all of you, you will say it is because I notice it. It's not because you notice it. It is only because you think it.
So that noticing part was actually a thought that came up and made that conclusion and I believed it.
Yeah, and what are you actually noticing? What you notice fully, we cannot translate, we cannot put into any narrative anyway. Try to notice you getting pulled in. Notice it. Exactly, when you're noticing it, it can't happen. No, even when you're noticing it, it can't happen then. Even if you're not in satsang and you're not like in the spotlight.
No,
yeah, anytime you notice, so you're not noticing it then. If you go to your head to tell you what is true about you, what do you think the head is going to say? This is how you can be rid of me. It's not going to do that. It's only going to tell you, oh, this is your problem. Come tomorrow for the next dose of medicine. This is so that's why this problem, this question, although it seems very simple, you say, this is what's happening to me. I say, how do you know? And if you know only through your mind, then it is the mind's trick to get you more mindy, not less mindy. The salesman will always sell you so that you can buy more from the salesman, not to say, okay, goodbye.
So you're saying that noticing is also the mind?
No, our report about what we are noticing is the mind. Like mostly our reports, like a report like this, that I have a tendency to whatever. No?
Yeah.
They will never notice that. It's impossible to notice, because if you're noticing, then you're not going with the mind.
Impossible situation.
It's impossible. And yet it seems like, yeah, it's have this tendency. So ask yourself, how do you know? And if it is from perception, then it's from perception. You see, but really validate that. But most of what we say that, how do you know that I have like this guilt or something? How do you know? I've noticed it. No, you've not. You thought it.
Yeah. So it's not an actual happening, it's the thought itself.
Exactly. So suppose you undertake a mission. You undertake a mission to be free from the oppression of the mind, free from mental slavery. Then who can be your guide along the way? Not the mind for sure. See? This is the main point. It may seem like such an obvious thing, and yet, like, how many times have we fallen for it? Like the April Fool that comes every day. He keeps saying, today, this is today, this is. But you feel like the mind is really going to help you be free from the mind? So if the mind is not going to help you be free from the mind, why is it giving you a diagnosis? Huh? You know, diagnosis. Yeah? Say, obviously to keep you in snare, you know?
Survival, for survival.
Exactly.
It's like mistaking it for the heart.
Huh?
Mistaking it for the heart sometimes.
Yeah, but yes, but even if we don't, we just like make excuses for the mind by saying that, okay, but I saw this, or you know, I know this, and if you don't. And this is how this spiritual seeker journey seems to perpetuate longer and longer and longer. Which is like, I haven't stabilized yet. How do you know? I'm not saying you believe the opposite idea, which is also mine. Which is, I have stabilized. I don't need to stabilize. Nothing. I'm saying empty of any of this. You see, don't make a conclusion. So at least by this point, none of you are startled that it's possible that both opposites are not taken to be true, isn't it? I can see that. If it's not diagnosing you, if it's saying you're fully bound, see, the solution or the antidote to that is not to say no, I'm fully free. That's still in the realm of the intellect, the opposite. Yeah? A thought is a thought. Every thought is a thought. So if you need guidance, there's so many videos, Guruji video, Papaji video, Bhagwan video. I've shared Satsang for 10 years. I was telling someone, not even jokingly, there are more videos than subscribers on the YouTube channel. So you can watch. There's no shortage of guidance, but we don't have to go to the head. We keep going to the head, and we're basically saying, what do you think about this? Okay, father is saying don't go to the head. What do I think? This is like good idea. He seems to be quite sincere. Where do we go for confirmation? Where can we go to confirm? Do you need a diagnosis? A diagnosis implies that there is a patient. You need to track your progress. That's the world template, no? Find out where you are at the present moment, then figure out which way you want to go, then find out how you're going to do it. That's how we work in the world. But empty of all of that, what do you need it for? If you had zero spiritual report about yourself, would you be better off or worse off? Is this a spiritual report? So don't go to the cellar of misery to be free from misery. No? We don't notice, but because it is habit, we do that. You see? We go to the drug dealer. I want to be free from drugs. What do you think he's going to give you? Which is like, just have this, it's very harmless, and for 3 days, you'll be fine. What's in that? Yeah, more addiction.
It's like heroin addiction in London. I think they give methadone.
Okay.
And people get more addicted to methadone than they were to heroin.
And that's worse for you.
That's worse for you.
So Advaita concepts, only as concepts, are much worse for you than worldly concepts. If you start looking at Advaita concepts as a world view or a perspective from your head, it's not going to help at all, to say the least. This is Ravan's problem. I'm also God. Why should I bow down to Ravan? I'm also God. We are one, there's only one God. But just conceptual Advaita. He would have been better off as a regular king. But what made him Ravan was mental Advaita. Of course, in some parts of the country and the world, they consider him to be a great sage also. The Shiv Tandav Sutam is composed by Ravan. So I'm not making a remark about Ravan, whatever Ravan there was or wasn't, but I'm just saying that is just a representation of spiritual ego. And what do they show about Ravan? Like at least in the north, his head had to be cut off 10 times. So a non-spiritual head just can be chopped once, but a spiritual head has to be cut 10 times.
Oh, I think the folklore was that it would keep coming back and then it had to be like it had to be from the source again. Because every time you chop one head, another one will go back, another one will go back.
What's the report now? What is happening to you? Where are you stuck? How will you know? And the mind can sound very spiritual also. Very spiritual. Don't mistake that to be your intuition. It's just the mind. I can be school teacher like for a moment. How do you know you're truly being intuitive?
or what you are as a
apparent. Is there any difficulty in that? Can somebody shake you out of your intuition into the head? So if you're being intuitive, it is clear when who I really am is apparent to me. And if that seems confusing, ask yourself, am I aware now? You cannot meet yourself as awareness through the head or through any perception. Stay there. Stay there means don't refer to any other source of knowledge than that which tells you that you are aware. Then it is my promise that no words from any sage will feel like they are too unfathomable or far out. They may still sound wonderful, of course, but it will not sound unachievable. And like you'll go through Ashtavakra Gita, you know. What? Ribu, like Ribu Gita is just like negation. It's just that kind of satsang. Be empty. It negates everything that you could construct. Just be empty. One good thing is for days or weeks or months, nobody has asked me, but what will happen to my responsibilities? What will happen to the work I'm meant to do? Nobody asked me this thing because now I feel, hopefully it is because I feel that from that intelligence everything can flow naturally, normally. Don't convince your mind of a single thing.